Obviously, a great Friday night for us. I mentioned that, obviously, after the game. Thought the environment in here was terrific. We had a need to do more whiteouts. But guys played well, went through the film over the weekend, and I thought we did some really good things. And as we all know, the race got a little tighter over the weekend, so it's an exciting time. We're barely halfway through, so it's going to be huge week for us, obviously, starting with Wednesday night in Minnesota. So we're looking forward to preparing and playing that one Wednesday night. Questions?
Jim?
Greg, I don't know how you spent your Saturday. Did you watch the Indiana-Michigan State game? And if so, do you find yourself, you've got to naturally find yourself cheering for Indiana in that situation, right? And then I know there's 5 weeks to go, but do you peek at the standings? How important is that to you?
Yeah, I think you're human, so you're always looking at standings and understanding where teams are. But no, I did not see any of them. When I was at my 5th grade daughter's basketball tournament, playing dad on Saturday afternoon, but following it very closely. I'll watch the film in due time.
Greg, you guys have done a good job closing out games during the streak, but the first game with Minnesota was obviously a little bit different. What do you remember from the final couple minutes that made the difference between finishing a comeback and suffering a tough loss?
Well, 3 turnovers. Coffee hit a tough shot in the lane over Reavers. But we weren't good in that first half. We've talked about that a lot. But hopefully we're better, because I think they've played some good basketball. They've been really impressive at times on film. I know they had a tough one yesterday, and they had a tough one at Michigan a couple weeks ago. But they've done some good things. It's a good team. So we just need to be better, and I think we are better. But we'll have another opportunity to show it Wednesday night.
Nate got into a little bit of foul trouble at Nebraska, and then against Maryland even more so. Some of it has been trying to box out. Have you been able to identify some things to try to help him and say, Nate, if you do this before, maybe you'll avoid that situation?
Yeah, we've looked at that. I mean, some of it's his use of hands. He gets a little trying to work leverage with his hands sometimes too much. Sometimes he gets caught trying to drive back, and he's not low enough, so he gets caught in what it looks like he's a pushing situation. A couple of them have been just guys getting tangled up, and he's been the recipient of the foul. So I think that'll be something as he gets stronger, he'll be able to hold his own more, and once he does get leverage, sustain it. And some of it's been positioning and just making sure he's low enough. And most of them have been in the rebounding scenarios. There's been a couple foolish ones where he's gone after rebounds or left his feet unnecessarily. So just trying to clean up all the little things as much as possible. But the majority's probably been leverage and what he's doing with his hands.
Coach, you've talked for weeks now about how tough the Big Ten is, but yet does it surprise you to see teams like Michigan and Michigan State go down? And then what does it say about you guys that you've been consistent through 5?
No, I think if you talk to any coaches through the league and just the conversations I've had with coaches before or after games, just how competitive it has been. And we've seen that I mentioned that before, just not necessarily final scores if you look at just those, but if you watch progressions of games and how games play out. There were several last week that could have won either way. Penn State could have won at home, that overtime game against Purdue. So there's been a lot of those type of scenarios where Illinois is playing pretty well right now. They beat Nebraska, obviously, and have done some good things. So I don't think anybody's surprised. I think you're just trying to, there's no get well game. There's no game where you can. Everybody talks about the tough stretch we're in, and we've been in a tough stretch since we've started Big Ten play. There's no relinquishing, I think, of your mindset and your preparation. They're all very competitive, as we've seen. It doesn't matter. You think Indiana loses 7 in a row, and the last place they would go to break that streak would be at Michigan State, but they went in and played really well. So I don't think anybody's safe at home or road against anybody. It's just any night, anything can happen, and that's been a cliche, but I think this year it's really proven true in terms of how competitive from 1 to 14 teams have been.
Coach Gard, I know Brad Davison led you guys just in not just in points at this last game, but also like he's basically this one-man hype squad, if you will. Are you ever surprised at the amount of not just energy and spirit, but his like positive energy that he has for the team?
No, because he's been like that since the day I've known him. I met him when he was an 8th grader. Came to camp with his team here, and he was like that. Just his personality stuck out right away. So I'm not surprised by it in terms of he is our emotional glue. There's no doubt, and he does so many good things for us. But he probably the thing he does better than anything is how he connects with everybody and communicates with everybody on and off the floor. He's a great communicator. He relates with people. He knows how to motivate. He wants to be a coach, and he'll be a good one someday. So, he said but that's how what you see on the floor with him and his interaction. That's how he is. If he's in class right now or he's getting ready to come to the weight room here in a little bit, he's like that all the time in every facet of his life. So, he'll be successful whatever route he takes, and obviously he's an important piece of that component in terms of the emotional and motivational and connection that he helps bond between teammates.
Greg, what kind of impact do you think the 20-game conference schedule will have just on the physical toll on your team? I know it's the same for everybody, so it's not like you're going through anything different, but how do you get around that?
Yeah, I think first of all, you understand everybody's going through the same thing, so there's nobody has an advantage or is at a disadvantage. I think you try to be really wise with how you're using your days in terms of your practice. Do you have multiple days? Well, you came off a stretch of 12 straight days, so I backed off a little bit in certain days after games specifically, and did maybe the amount of work wasn't less, but the duration and the contact I removed. So I tried to shorten some of that stuff in terms of how much we were maybe hitting each other, so to speak. Or at all, took it out of practice completely for a couple days after games. So you just you have to read your team and kind of see what you think how they're feeling. You talk to your older guys, how they're feeling. But I think it will be interesting. We're the first league to ever do this, to go 20 games, and not only you go through the 20-game regular season, but then you have a conference tournament. And how does it impact teams going into postseason play? But I think you got to I've tried to be very judicious and cautious in terms of engaging our guys, and not as much as maybe you want to come back and go hard the next day after a game. Probably more than ever, I've backed off of some of that, and tried to, especially when you're in stretches. Now we had a little break, so today we'll go back at it in a normal practice pattern. But when you're in those longer stretches with no days off, I think we've tried to be smart about what we're doing.